Hello and welcome to Great Britain in Focus. I'm James McCullough.
And I'm Pascal Mary Rakovich.
Today we meet again with Fr Alexander Sherbrooke, a parish priest in Soho, central London, who is well known for his amazing work of evangelisation. In an area notorious for its colourful nightlife, the nighttime Eucharistic Adoration has attracted people of all creeds into his church. This is just one of many ways in which he enables the grace of God's love to be a light in the surrounding darkness. And I believe you know him quite well, Pascal Mary.
I do. He married my husband and I. And it's been a real joy to hear him speak about his mission in the heart of London, where he is very much alive in welcoming and promoting numerous initiatives for evangelisation. He has great courage in proclaiming our faith through processions, events, youth ministry. You'll find in Fr Alex a real fatherly figure who is so open to the promptings of the Holy Spirit.
Well, let's meet Fr Alex.
Hello and welcome. Today at Walsingham Studios we have a very special guest, Fr Alexander Sherbrooke, who's come all the way from Soho in London, where he's the rector of St Patrick's. Fr Alexander, welcome to EWTN Studios here in Walsingham.
Great joy to be in Walsingham again.
Now, Fr Alexander, when I say the word Soho and the word gospel, they don't necessarily match in my mind. Soho is not the first place I think of when I think of the gospel. What's it like being the parish priest of that particular quarter of London?
Well, you just need to wheel it back a little bit, because Soho, in fact, is a French hunting cry. And that's how it came to be called Soho, but many will not know that now. Soho, traditionally for 200 years, has been everything from the red light area to a place of entertainment, of clubs, of various kinds of activity, all colourful, some of which we would find quite challenging, but it's a place of great life. It's a little bit of a sort of shop window into our modern world. But there we are. We have a parish right in the heart of Soho Square, where we're called to proclaim the gospel. And I suppose the most important thing is just to be that face of Christ through the proclamation of the gospel, through Eucharistic adoration, and most significantly reaching out to those who are poor and broken.
Now, as you're speaking there, I was suddenly thinking that you're right in a sense that Soho is a place where people go looking for things. Sometimes not very good things or things that mightn't be the best thing. Do you find many searchers pitching up at St Patrick's who have inadvertently arrived at a Catholic church, maybe with adoration, in the middle of something which they weren't quite looking for?
Indeed, and one of the wonderful things that we have in the parish is something called Night Fever, which happens on a Saturday night, and we have a whole team of young people, volunteers, who will go out to invite people to come into the church. And during that time we have Eucharistic adoration and constant movement, music in the church with opportunities for confession. So the people who wander into the church or are invited to come into the church are certainly not paid up Christians or Catholics. They come from all shapes of background. And it's always very interesting just to hear the conversation, sometimes the background conversation, as the Lord is there being adored. And they say, there's something different here. What is it? I sense that there's a peace here. What is it that the club down the road that we just spent so many pounds at doesn't seem to be offering, but there's something here. So it's a place where people are constantly crossing the threshold. The church is open throughout the day. There's Eucharistic adoration throughout the day. And that's a wonderful threshold that many people cross. And so there are lots of stories to tell and many moments and interventions of God's grace.
Now, Eucharistic adoration increasingly has become part of the life of St Patrick's. What difference does it make, do you think, spiritually, to be in the very centre of London with this Eucharistic heart 24/7?
Well, the way I've always described it, and in some ways it's very simple, is that within the human condition is always the desire and the hunger for love. We need to be loved, and we look for love to give love. Now, often in our world, that search for love is misapplied, it's misdirected. It's not satisfied in the fullest and the most life-giving sense. What happens in Soho is that everything is being sold. Drugs, sex, alcohol, entertainment. And what those are sort of short-term fixes for people who are looking for love. So what is happening is that people are coming in, looking to have their desire for love satiated, but often going away greatly disappointed. Now, the importance of Eucharistic adoration is that from the Eucharist, from the Blessed Sacrament, flows the unconditional love of Jesus, which does not ask any questions, which wants to pour itself completely into our hearts. And it's often the case that people make that meeting with Jesus and they suddenly realize that they have been sold a very mistaken kind of love in the clubs and the restaurants and the pubs. And they suddenly discover that there is something there which is life-giving and, as we say, is eternal. And it is what we call the unconditional love of Christ.
Do you think in a way that St. Patrick's as a parish and as outreach was being prepared in things like night fever? Because you were one of the few London parishes which were not sort of closing the doors and having religious services inside, but were throwing the doors open, going out into the streets, finding people and inviting them in, literally inviting them in. Do you think that there's a sort of correlation or a link with what you've been doing for years suddenly becoming even more prominent during the pandemic?
I haven't thought of it in that way, but I think you're right. We've always had a deep desire to do street evangelization, where literally we will go into the street and meet people, engage them in conversation. We do many processions through the streets. That any opportunity of inviting people to come to devotions that we will take. So that's there. A night fever is there. But in some ways there's a beautiful twist of God's providence here, because some 10 years ago we had to rebuild the centre of a church, and we basically built a community centre which has got a substantial kitchen and eating space. And a lot of sacrifice and generosity went into making that possible. Now, some 10 years later, it's almost as though God is saying, look, I've given you this place, put it to work. And in some ways it's been like a top grade restaurant. I mean, just to give you a little instance, without in any way advertising them, but they won't mind, that at the beginning of the pandemic we were able to approach one of the best hotels in London, the Connaught Hotel. It would cost you more than your year's salary to go and stay there, perhaps for just one night. And they came to us and said, we will feed people. We will cook food in our kitchens and we will bring it in. So every day a sort of black limousine would appear and this extraordinary food would be brought out, and that allowed us to keep going, and it's still the case to this day. So it is extraordinary how God has opened doors for people at this time.
Absolutely. Now, you talked about processions and processing the Blessed Sacrament through the streets of Soho.
Yes, certainly.
What's that like?
Well, it's very interesting because we do three processions on a regular basis. Process with the cross, process with the Blessed Sacrament, and process with Our Lady. When we process with the Blessed Sacrament, you have that real sense of both openness but also hostility. You know that you are, in a sense, confronting the forces of emptiness, of darkness, call them what you will. And as a priest carrying the Blessed Sacrament of those processions, I always sense that there's a residual darkness out there. Carrying Our Lady is very different. She doesn't antagonize. She doesn't arouse opposition. Now, what is that? I don't know. Is it the mother? We always love a mother, her femininity, her love of her people. And I'm not saying in any way, I'm not putting any dubious theology out there, but so often it is the case in life, isn't it? For us as Catholics, is that we meet Mary and she takes us to her Son. And I think that is something of what is going on.
And the cross?
The cross is a sign. It's a sign of opposition, of contradiction. It's a sign of saying to the world, you're wrong. You know, your doing wrong has contributed to this. And that is why we have to be ready to go into synagogues of unbelievers who are going to whisper kinds of calumny against us, who are going to bring us before tribunals. You know, that is of course at the heart of our faith. But opposition is something nothing new.
Do you have any experience when you're carrying the Blessed Sacrament through the streets of London? I mean, the sort of opposition I kind of get, and I've been on such processions and I see it and I hear it, but what surprises me sometimes, and I wonder if this is your experience, which is greater than mine, that you see some very pleasant, surprising experiences of public witness and public adoration. Is that part of your experience?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, some will just carry on smoking and chatting and making jokes. Others will go silent. Others will cross themselves. And you know that there is both a residual faith out there, but there are also people who are perhaps drawn to it without knowing what it is. You mark it with song and solemnity and incense, and that makes people think, well, there's something here which is not normal, which is not regular. And that's a beautiful moment of evangelization, and it's a moment that one will never be able to measure, perhaps in years to come when we meet God face to face. He will say, do you remember on that procession on the 7th of June 2009, you met this person? Well, this person then became a Catholic. This person then offered themselves to the priesthood. Who knows what happens? But the Lord needs to be able to walk amongst his people, to be present to his people.
It's true that Soho has thrown up a number of saints in all sorts of strange ways. And obviously you've got the martyrs at Tyburn just down the road. Do you feel there? I mean, you're a man that strikes me with a lot of energy and a lot of love for this part of London. Are these the spiritual engines that are helping you, the spiritual intercessors that are helping you in your current work in that part of London?
I'm sure that's true. I mean, first of all, there is Claude de la Colombière. He was only in London for a short period of time. There was also the remarkable Mother Magdalene Taylor, having nursed in the Crimea, who came back as a Catholic and started her congregation, the Poor Servants of the Mother of God, in Soho. And then there was Archbishop Fulton Sheen,
that's right,
who also spent a lot of time in St. Patrick's. And I'm very conscious with that history that there are great people who have gone before us, who have spoken about the Eucharist, who have gone to the poor, who have lived intense lives of holiness, recognizing that Soho, which is where we started, is a place of darkness. And it is into that darkness that one has to bring the light of Jesus.
Well, we're very grateful for you taking some time out of your work to come and visit us today, Father Alexander, and we hope and pray that the light of St. Patrick's will continue to burn even brighter in the years ahead, and I certainly do hope you illuminate the church when adoration is on. That's a wonderful idea. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming, and maybe we look forward to visiting you there in the near future.
Bless you. Thank you kindly.
Not long ago, Dumb Ox Ministries ran its first Echo Retreat in Walsingham for young people, in which the teachings of St. John Paul II on the theology of the body were explored in depth. Alexandria Nestor, a missionary with Dumb Ox Ministries, shares with us now her story of her encounter with theology of the body and its profound effect on her life.
Amidst a culture of so much confusion, Alexandria tells us how she has journeyed in her faith and discovered the gift of her feminine identity, a truth that is unknown to so many young people. We learn from her about the mission of Dumb Ox Ministries to spread the theology of the body, seeing the whole person in God's eyes in order to fully live out our unique vocation to love.
I'm Charlene and I'm joined here with Alexandria from Dumb Ox Ministries. Hi Alexandria, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So you're here with Dumb Ox Ministries for the Echo Retreat.
Yes, so I'm working with them as a missionary this summer. We're based in Louisiana, and part of that is that we get to travel all over to join them as they run Echo.
Nice. So. And what does Dumb Ox Ministries do exactly? What is their mission?
Well, Dumb Ox comes from, it's the nickname of St. Thomas Aquinas, because you know, he was big in his build, but like quiet in nature, and just his striving for purity was something that they like tried to model themselves on. So their goal really is to just spread that vocation to love, like that to which we're all called, to truly like love as Christ loves.
And how did you get involved with Dumb Ox Ministries? Yeah,
Dumb Ox visited my home parish in October of 2017, and I fell in love with the people that I met, because I had learned about theology of the body, and like it was such a gift, but I didn't truly like get to see anybody that was like really living that out, like in its truest form, in its fullest form, until I met them. And I remember just like feeling so drawn to them. Just by the way they lived that out, I could see that they truly like were able to look into the eyes of another person and like truly see the whole person. And so they visited my parish, and I just felt drawn to them from there. And how did you think of theology of the body beforehand, and how has that changed after joining Dumb Ox Ministries? Yeah, so theology of the body beforehand, like my experience was just this 10-week program before meeting any of the Dumb Ox team, and it was something that like my heart was just like overflowing with this desire to share it, but I didn't necessarily have a clue how to share it until I met them, and that just kind of drove me forward and actually giving me the courage to say yes to sharing that however the Lord wanted me to do so. And so like my view on it was like it was something that I received as knowledge, and I received it in my heart, but like I didn't have that community, I guess, to truly like share that with. And so like it changed just with joining Dumb Ox, like in their community, like being invited into love, like being invited into a mini civilization of love. So you sound really mature in your faith. Can you tell us a bit about that faith journey? Yeah, like it started out with Mary. So growing up, like I was raised Catholic. Like I received communion and confirmation and all those things, but like, and there was part of me like at that young age that was like kind of like convicted in it, but I didn't necessarily understand it, and I didn't necessarily have faith in it. Like I believed it to be true, but I wasn't, like I didn't have the faith to go along with that. I guess when it came to it, I did to some degree, because I still understood it to be true. But yeah, when I was about 15, the Lord just really like revealed to me that I was desperate for Him, and He did that through Mary. I went through this process over 2.5 years of going through repeated knee injuries. And so like the first time around I was 12 years old, and I honestly, it was so painful, I just like ignored the problem. And the second time around I was like saying 1 or 2 prayers, but more out of fear than anything, as opposed to like being faithful. So yeah, like I tried getting better, but like other than that I wasn't really praying. And then later that year, like I just had this relapse. I just turned 15, and I realized in that moment, I'm like, I'm done. I have tried doing everything, and it was crazy because I couldn't walk, and so I ended up sleeping in my late grandmother's downstairs bedroom, and I found this rosary beads and a Legion of Mary tessera.
Wow.
And my mom had just like started practicing again herself, like praying the rosary. But like we hadn't yet just been introduced to that. I hadn't said the rosary since I was a kid, and
Wow.
I just picked up the rosary beads and the tessera, and I walk out to the kitchen and I'm like, Mom, can I join the Legion of Mary? And she's only there, I don't know how long she's there herself yet, but like she was brand new to it, and she was just like, I don't know if it's for kids or like if it's just for adults yet, or like what the story is with that. And I was like, well, can you like teach me how to pray these prayers? And so she did. She reminded me how to pray the rosary, and she showed me the Divine Mercy Chaplet.
Wow.
And like, yeah, just from there, like Mary just like really started opening up my heart. Before I knew it, I ended up being involved in the Legion of Mary a couple of months later. And yeah, like part of that like has been just giving of yourself in service, like each week, you know. It's been constant giving of yourself, and so like that has been really maturing, because like you also throughout that process like you get to learn about your faith, and like I heard the real truth about what our faith actually was, and like that just like stirs that fire within you to pursue that continually, because you know that you're receiving truth, and you know you're receiving direct truth, you know. It's not watered down, like you can hear the Lord in it.
So you were raised in Ireland.
Yes.
How did being there impact your faith?
It didn't really for a while. Obviously, you know that we had a referendum, and unfortunately we voted abortion into our country, and we're the first country to legalize abortion by vote. And like that has, like from the outside, like, and from the inside too as well, like that's a really desperate situation for the Catholic faith to be in at the time. But like it's crazy just how God like always like prevails even in the darkest situation. That it's crazy how many young people are converting at the time of the referendum. Like, yeah, so many of my current like Catholic friends that are like truly strong in their faith, like brothers and sisters that you can lean on for support in your faith, are actually converts from the pro-life campaign. Yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing. In a situation that seems, can seem like kind of hopeless, to hear like such an amazing testimony of conversions. It's really powerful. So during this week, during the Echo Retreat, we've been learning a lot about theology of the body. There have been lots of great talks. What do you think you've learned in terms of your femininity during these lectures that we've been having?
Wow.
Loaded question.
No, it's just I like have been coming recently to like understand more and more just like the gift of femininity, and actually, you know, just truly recognizing like my own feminine identity, that is the gift that the Lord has given me, and recognizing that I'm worthy of that gift. But yeah, like just learning to become, I guess, you know, the woman of God, I guess, that He is calling me to be. And it looks different for each person. Like I couldn't like fully express what I've been receiving. It's been so incredible. But like just realizing that like He has created us like for, it's crazy like how we're made in His image and likeness, and like how He reveals that like distinctly through masculinity and femininity, but like both different and complementary to one another. And like He saved woman for last, you know, and how God is just like complete in and of Himself, and you know, like the only reason that He created us is because He is love, and love creates. Love always makes more, and He created us just to delight in Him and for Him to delight in us, and to recognize that as a woman, like recognizing that yearning to be desired, and that like that desire for something, and that ultimate desire being love, and how we can live that out, you know, through whatever vocation the Lord calls us to has been a great gift.
I love that one of the speakers said during the retreat that we are fully human and we are still becoming fully human.
Yes.
Like there's still a journey, there's still a process. So yeah, it's been really wonderful during the Echo Retreat.
Yeah.
So the Theology of the Body is based on the teachings and the lectures of Pope St. John Paul II. How do you think he's impactful now today for the youth?
Wow. I think honestly, like, this is something that we're only like just unpacking now. Like there's so much fruit to come from it. And I think it's particularly like crucial for the youth of today, just in the culture that we live in. Like we live in a world like of so much confusion as to what our identity is, and we started, like we limit our identity or what we identify as being identified just as our sexuality, which is a part of us, but there is more to us than that. Like our identity is, as a beloved son, as a beloved daughter of the Lord. And what does that give us? And actually just being able to like share the fullness of that with young people today, because this is a message that is brand new to them. I know that like when I received the message of the theology of the body, like it was like for the first time, like I was hearing my worth, and yeah, like I think that's what it is for today's youth. Like it's hearing what you're worth for the first time. Like you're worth a kingdom, you're worth the kingdom of heaven, you're worth Christ coming down and being nailed to a cross for you, like that is something that seems new today, despite the fact that the Lord has been saying that from the beginning.
So thank you for being with us, Alexandria. It's been really great chatting with you, and we wish you all the best in your future and all of God's plans for you ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. Full versions of these interviews will be made available shortly on our social media channels.
EWTN Great Britain is a self-funded charity, so if you'd like to support our mission, do visit our website on ewtn.co.uk.
Until next time, goodbye and God bless.